Hey, welcome back to the channel. Haven't made a video here for a little bit, but talk a little bit today and certainly give you a reminder. Next week, Thursday, 2 p.m., I'll be doing my summer presentation at the Perform Better Summer Series. And obviously with the inability for Perform Better to put together all of the summits that you would typically be seeing in Orlando and Long Beach, Chicago, Providence, for 67 presenters across. This has already been going on for a few months or weeks rather, and it'll probably go all the way through September. So I'm gonna go on Thursday, and it should be a fun talk. I think it'll be a little bit different in terms of doing it from my living room, but it'll be fun. We got some cool things planned. There's no time limit to a degree. Obviously in the summer we get an hour and 15 minutes, but we can go long, we can go short, and there'll be Q&A. So we got some cool stuff planned. I think it'll be a fun talk, and I do hope that this is the week that we're able to break 1,000 visitors for each one. You've got Boyle going on Monday. You've got Jason Glass on Tuesday. You got Justin Grinnell on Wednesday, myself on Thursday, and somebody who I'm familiar with, Ali, is going on Friday. So I'll mention that again. But one of the things that I have been doing during this period of time where working with folks has been significantly minimized, I've decided to begin to work with a couple companies. There's three particularly, and there are two are tech company. Well, they're both tech companies, but one is a wearable and the other not so much. And I'm by intention not going to say the names of the companies because the message that I really like to get across is in choosing some of these technologies, there's some certain things that we can look at, because there's some ridiculous decisions that are being made in choosing different types of wearables or different types of technologies. And when people ask, number one, it is very, very hard - impossible to convince someone else they've already chosen the wrong thing. And it goes back to logic and some of the things I've talked about in the past, and how do you have these very safe discussions on what would you do to begin with. Number one, why do you want this thing in the first place? Do you want this because so-and-so did a swipe up nonsense on Instagram? Do you want this thing because celebrity or athlete X is using it? Or is this thing able to answer questions for your training model? Yes or no? Have you been begging for this? Have you been thinking like, if I had this information and it was valid and reliable, would I be able to create a better situation for my clients, athletes, patients? If the answer is yes, then the questions you then need to ask, and every tech company should be able to provide this. If they're not able to provide it, or just like if you asked anybody a question and you got this pregnant pause, they don't know what the hell you're talking about, and the information probably doesn't exist because the tech is probably a piece of garbage. Now, there are going to be proprietary things that they're not going to tell you, and they should just say that. Be like, yes, that information exists, and we're not going to tell it to you because we think you can steal what we're doing. And that really brings us to the next point. Everybody's got different standards. If your standards are not met with the degree of evidence, well, then that's cool. But to say something very, very linear that this is, and here's what I'm getting at. So the one of the techs that I'm working with, I asked a friend who I have a tremendous amount of respect. He's far more steeped in scholastic work than I. He's the dude that does the studies. And I asked him, I said, look at this stuff. And basically he said, I'm not looking at any white papers. It was a combination of white papers, which is not published work, and published work. So of course he ignored the fact that there was anything published because there was white papers. So again, that's his standard, and that's okay. I just know not to ask him again for this type of conversation. I learned about the depth of relationship. But my point is, just because somebody didn't want to publish something or just it wasn't even in their wheelhouse, you still have the opportunity for you to be the peer that reviews the work. The methods, the subjects, everything is still all there, but just because it wasn't published in Journal of whatever, I'm not sure that that's a useful standard. You're basically rejecting information that probably, not maybe, probably is just as solid as the information. They just didn't want to publish it, or the company was involved. Because remember, when it's tech, maybe you don't have the budget to go buy enough tech to supply the subjects and the sample size that's needed for a robust study. So the company pays for it. The company pays for it. It turns into a white paper. I don't know that that's wrong, where when you're using the exact same methods and the exact same gold standards that a peer-reviewed study would use, I'm not sure rejecting a white paper that's not what I would do. Last summer, we had our friendly games for the World Cup in Australia, and I had spent a lot of time and then had a really keen one-on-one dinner with someone who I look up to in this research space, Aaron Coots. I met him several years ago when we were on a board at Nike. He came out a couple years before to spend a whole week with us in Toronto and just critiqued and crunched what we were doing and you know, as somebody who is really very, very steeped in this type of analysis of technology or other sports science measures, he's like, no, there's nothing wrong with what you're doing, Charlie. You're just more heuristic. I'm not a PhD, and maybe I will be. And if I am, I'm still not going to change the standards that I want to use to win games and make money. This is, I just was really, really confused. But my point there, though, is just that I was confused. You don't have to be confused. If you need X, Y, and Z to adopt a method or a technology, well, that's fine. It doesn't make somebody else wrong. You just have a different standard. And someone else will win games, and someone else will make money because you'll be rejecting, you know, manual therapy techniques or exercises just because it doesn't have the evidence. I actually just read a study on measuring the different velocity training techniques, and some of the ones that a lot of people have, as predicted, are total garbage. Because when you're a good coach, you're always a scientist. You're always like, this doesn't pass the sniff test. And when you look at those things, you're going to continue to ask questions after you have your standard. You're going to ask questions: does this thing measure the same thing under the same conditions every single time? Now, that doesn't even make it correct or not, but what we need is reliable. So if you do the same thing under the exact same conditions, fatigue is not part of this, and you're just going to measure, the ruler measures the same distance no matter where you use it or how you use it or whether the ruler gets wet or the surface is spongy, okay? It's reliable, and you're going to get the same measurement every single time. That doesn't make it correct. It has to be correct. But if you can't even get the same measurement every single time, every time you activate this process, whether it's a method, a technology, etc., is not reliable. Nothing else matters. If the guts of inside the machine is not delivering the exact same information every single time based to itself, then there's really no reason to look past it. Secondly, it needs to measure the same correct measure. Well, how do you know that it's correct? Well, you're going to measure that up against a gold standard. So let's say you've got this magical heart rate monitor and you'd like to test its validity. Does it do what it says it's going to do? Well, you can measure it against a gold standard, and you can pick what the gold standard is. If we're going to talk about heart rate, it probably is a 12-lead wired ECG that you would get in a hospital if you were suspected of cardiac illness. That's one example of a gold standard. Does your little heart rate device, your heart rate strap monitor, does it measure the same as this? And is there a level of acceptable error that you decide, not someone else? You can decide for the standards of how you want to practice and go about your business. Okay, so a lot of these technologies aren't even measuring the same thing, but people aren't asking because, you know, so-and-so is promoting it and they've got some significant marketing. I just find that weird. But ask, hey, Are there any reliability studies? Do you have reliability? Oh, it's reliable. Yeah, so-and-so uses it. He loves it. He thinks it's great. Really? I didn't ask you if so-and-so used it. I asked you, is there, and then if they don't have it, it probably doesn't exist. So that tells you something about that company. But also, you have the ability to do it yourself. If you trust your little heart rate monitor, use this new novel device and see if they match up. And if they don't match up, one is right and one is wrong. And if you have already accepted this other one as right, well, you know what? You picked the wrong one. Not the end of the world. Throw it away. Use it as fashion. It doesn't do anything. So we need things to be reliable, meaning they need to measure the same thing every single time, and they need to be valid. They need to actually measure what they say they're measuring. And then there's probably a whole slew of other questions. Ask questions. You have a standard. I told you a standard with a close friend that we just didn't agree with. And neither of us hate each other. We just different, and that's okay. But I don't understand, and I need to talk to him more as to why am I wrong to believe, like I've looked at this, I see what they did. This definitely passes the sniff test. So we need things to be reliable, we need things to be valid, and we need the ability to ask questions. And if we don't know the questions, well then you might wind up, in some rabbit holes and probably get stuck with some things. But once you do ask the questions, it's okay. That was the last video from a couple weeks ago. It's okay if you pick the wrong one. And if somebody brings this to your attention, they're probably not trying to hurt you. They're probably trying to help you. And then if you perceive, even if they're talking crazy, which I might have been guilty of more than 6 times, stop, hit pause, and let's try to understand, hey, maybe this person knows something that I didn't know. Maybe they ask questions that I didn't ask. Maybe I'm making a big mistake and I shouldn't have an emotional connection to this technique, to this exercise, to this technology. These are all questions that you should ask, and it all though begins with your own standard. So that's been a big part of how I've been supporting one of the companies that I've been working with during this period of time, where working with people in person has been challenged. But I'm glad that's about to change. As more things open up and people become more available to utilize how we can help them. So again, next Thursday, 2 p.m., you're going to catch that Perform Better. Not sure we're going to talk about what we just did, but it was a good reason to get that out there, and I'll try to do another couple things that I have in the queue on my mind to push out there. We will be really... So Thursday at 2 p.m. I go live. Chris Poirier and Aaron will introduce me, and I'm pretty sure probably around that time, if you go to the website, charlieweingroff.com, you will see the release of our next video installment. It'll be on the streaming platform, T=R+. It will have a launch discount. We haven't really decided how long it's gonna be. I will promote that before Thursday, so everybody knows exactly what it is. It is ACL in action. We've seen that little video, and there's nothing out there that I don't know why no one's ever done it, but I'm going to give you what I would do to my standards. I don't care what anybody else does, because I ain't that half bad at doing it. Of how you would take somebody from ACL start to finish minus what a competent physical therapist would do. We're sticking with the plan. Train equals rehab. People are going to work together. There's certain systems of the body that some people are expert on and others are not. So we do not show anything that a non-healthcare provider should be doing. I know you got all sorts of other options. You can go, we want everybody to know our stuff, and you can come sit in our manual therapy class, but we're going to expect that you don't do it when you leave. Of course, that really happens. No, we're not going to break any of those lines, and if I make less money doing it, then I'll be fine. Everything's going to be cool. So ACL in Action is coming out on Thursday, 2 p.m. on Thursday. When you evaluate a new technique or a new technology, it's got to be reliable, it's got to be valid. Ultimately, you will set the standards, not someone else.